Danish Ambassador to Kenya.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and great to see you again. We were together on Wednesday for really interesting discussions, and I really want to thank NTV for organizing this Kusi Festival and having that in-depth discussion on these really important issues. Also making sure that the awareness around climate change is being put out there in Kenya. I wanted actually to talk about the question from one of the farmers that said that we are disconnected from this global or academic discussion that is happening here in Gigiri. And I think that's actually a really important point. Going back to the last elections we had in Denmark in 2019, that happened to be the first election in the history of Denmark where climate change was on the top of the voters' agenda. That was the #1 issue for the Danish voters at that time. That came out of a long period of time where the children, they went on the Fridays for Futures strike, which really impacted the political agenda in Denmark. So the new government came in on a very strong mandate and with a very strong sense that they needed to really up their game on climate change. And they agreed to have a new and much more ambitious target of 70% of reduction in CO2 emissions. And they were very open and said, we do not know, and we don't have the technology as of now to get there, but we want to set the ambitions as high as possible. Again, to then delve into how to go about that challenge, the government set down or organized 15 partnerships in all the different sectors that are touched by climate change and where there are CO2 emissions, etc. And it was everything from transport to agriculture, as we have just discussed, to energy. Even the banking and financial sector was part of a partnership they were given the mandate to come up with solutions. How can Denmark reach this ambitious target of 70%? And that led to a very interesting discussion, and exactly as the question, connecting the farmers of Denmark to the political ambitions and to the people sitting in Copenhagen and having these more academic discussions. And each of these partnerships were headed by one of the leaders in the sector. So the one in agriculture was headed by the leader of the Danish agricultural organizations. So they were in there, and they were being tasked of coming up with a number of recommendations on how exactly can their sector contribute to these 70% and become a more climate-friendly sector as such. And that led to 15 partnerships with each of them a lot of recommendations that then came into the government machinery and were turned into new regulations, new subsidies or taxes if that was needed, etc., etc. But putting the incentives and making sure that you had a very strong collaboration with the private sector, with the farmers of Denmark, with the electricity providers, of how actually to move this agenda in Denmark. And I believe Kenya has come really far on this agenda, especially if you compare to many of your neighbors in Africa. And there are already talks, and you have a very strong private sector that are interested in this. You have a very strong financial sector who want this to happen. But getting that very close dialogue and conversation, I believe, is one of the keys to really move this another step. I know both KEPSA and KAM, they are trying to organize partnerships, one around waste management, circular economy, again connecting the ones who are collecting the garbage, to the one who potentially can reuse some of the recycled plastics, etc., etc., and to have that conversation. So for me, that would be really a great outcome if there could be more of that in Kenya. And why not have a partnership on agriculture, where the farmers came together with the political leaders and the investors, because all hands needs to be on deck on this, and everybody needs to work together on this. And what we've seen, I believe, in Kenya, because we are, as the Danish embassy, what we term a frontline mission. So we are also supposed to walk the talk and be a climate-friendly representation here. So we have bought an electric vehicle, for instance, and it was a year ago. At that time, we actually couldn't buy a brand new electric vehicle in Nairobi. So we had to source it from Uganda and import it together with an e-bike, by the way. And it runs perfectly, and it can run 300 kilometers without recharge, and it runs on the electricity of Kenya, which is 90% renewable. So for me, I was like, why is there not more focus on that in a country like Kenya? You import, the biggest import bill of Kenya is petrol. You wouldn't have to if you quickly transformed into e-mobility, for instance. Another thing we did was we had to lay new tiles on the grounds, and we found this Kenyan company called Jenge that does tiles made of recycled plastics. They were lighter, they were even cheaper than the normal standard tiles. So we bought them, and they work perfectly on the grounds. My point is that there are actually a lot of innovative solutions already happening, both in Kenya and in the region. The question is how to scale that up and how to connect those dots to make sure that comes out and really changes how things are done here in Kenya. So I'd leave it at that, but really thank you a lot for your attention, and wish you great discussions further on through the day. Thank you so much.